Welcome to the Brain Pick a Pro Show, live from Lake Wiley, South Carolina. I'm Larry Goins. Thanks for watching Brain Pick a Pro or listening. If you're listening on iTunes, please share and please leave us a comment, some feedback. We really, really appreciate that. That's awesome. Thanks a lot for watching and or listening. And today, got a special guest, Jacob Ayers, which I've known for a little while. I've been on his podcast, and he's a mover and shaker, and he started really, really young. And he's got a mission out there to help a lot of young people get started in real estate investing. And he's just doing a phenomenal job at teaching people how to do this and sharing the word and helping a lot of people along the way. So I said, man, I got to get you on my Brain Pick a Pro podcast. So please give a warm welcome, Jacob Ayers. What's going on, buddy?
Larry, hey, thanks so much for having me on. Excited to be here.
That's awesome, man. Awesome. So tell our listeners a little backstory about yourself.
Well, hey, I hope this interview will live up to that great introduction you just laid out. But a little bit about myself. I'm a young professional. I am 28 years old now. I've been investing in real estate for a few years, but to really get the full picture about me, Larry, maybe take it back to the early days of my life. So like many people out there, I'm not so different than most millennials, that is. I kind of grew up with this mindset to go to school, get a good education, get a good job, go to college, study something difficult. And that landed me through studying engineering at Oklahoma State University. I graduated in 2013, found myself in the corporate world. And, up to this point, I've always had something to shoot for, go to school, get a good education, get good grades, always kind of the milestones. Right. And I found out that my blueprint really ended at this get a good job phase. So here I was with a good job. And the next thing I was looking at, milestone, was retire when you're 65, right? So that didn't really sit well with me. I knew that, there's still stuff I wanted to do, things I wanted to accomplish. So at the time, I was really interested in personal finance and just kind of building a future for myself and not having to rely on an employer for the next 45 years. Maybe retire early if I'd like. So there you go. So, I kind of got interested in real estate investing and went down this rabbit hole, if you will. And, it's led me to where I'm at today.
That's awesome, man. Now, you've always had a knack for building stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit, both physical and intangible. I like setting up processes and procedures and, a little bit of physical stuff. I'm not like a super great mechanic or anything, but, I like, just building things and building processes and, kind of visualizing how something's going to work out and then seeing it play out. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. I love it. So tell us a little bit about your real estate business.
Yeah, well, so I bought my very first rental property when I was 25 years old, still working in corporate America. It sounds young, but so many people out there are doing it so much younger. So, good for them. It's great. So, at the time I wanted to invest in real estate, and that's really all I knew what. So I was a relatively young college graduate. I didn't have a ton of money to my name, so I knew I had to start either creatively or pretty low barrier to entry. So like I mentioned, I'm from Oklahoma. So I decided to invest in my home market. At the time, I was living in Houston, Texas, where I still am today. So investing out of state for my very first property. Now, I like to tell this story because it shocks a lot of people, but my very first property I bought was a single family home for $25,000. Now, I know a lot of people are sitting out there thinking like, wow, a $25,000 house doesn't sound like a real thing. I can assure you it is. I bought it. And, it's something that was rent ready, surprisingly. It's a one bedroom house, probably 1,200 square feet. Oh, maybe not that big. Maybe 1,000 square feet. And, fixed it up a little bit, did some cosmetic repairs to it, got it rented out. And I got that very first rent check and I thought, okay, this is cool. This works. I like this. I'm going to do it again, just rinse and repeat. So yeah, that very first property was, a really cool thing for me. It didn't necessarily move that needle for me so much in the beginning, but it got the ball rolling. And I think that was a really important takeaway going into it.
That's awesome, man. That's really good. That's good. So what does your real estate business look like now?
Yeah, so quickly after that, I transitioned into small multifamily properties. I knew I wanted to generate some economies of scale. Getting that first property was relatively hard financially. I had to save up a little chunk of money as a relatively new graduate. Right. And then I thought, okay, cool, I did that. Now the next one, I've got to rinse that process and repeat again, save up for that next down payment. Right. And, it was a little slower than what I wanted it to be. So I wanted to, get some economies of scale. So I quickly moved into small multifamilies, duplexes, triplexes, that kind of thing. So been doing that ever since. And, that's going really well. And then the goal is to transition into larger apartment buildings.
Awesome. So you're really a buy and hold guy.
Yes, definitely so. I've never sold a property, actually. So I've still got that very first property I bought, I guess, about 3 years ago now. And still holding on to it, still performing well. And grown my portfolio since then.
Well, I always tell people there's two kinds of real estate. Real estate is a business and real estate is an investment, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, there you go. You can do both. So, so you're doing small multifamily, and your goal is to work your way up to larger multifamily. Are you doing the BRRR method? Is that kind of what you're doing?
Yes, I have. So,
explain that to our listeners. A lot of them may not understand what that means, but I kind of figured that's what you were doing.
Yeah, so the BRRR method, BRRR, however many R's there are, it's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. I don't think I missed anything there. So essentially, you buy a property, you're going to fix it up, you're going to get it rented, you're going to increase that value, then refinance, pull out some equity, and in my case, that repeat process, put it into another property. So that's how I was able to accumulate my second and third properties, was using that BRRR method. Really, it's a great way to unlock capital for those people just getting started out that are maybe a little bit strapped for cash. Mm-hmm. You can really generate some equity in these properties by going in and renovating them a little bit and dramatically increasing that value, pulling it out, rolling it over, and doing it again. So yeah, it's a great strategy for people out there, and highly recommend it.
Right. Now, you still work a full-time job, don't you?
That's right. So, I was still working that same corporate engineering job I came straight out of college with. That's what brought me down to Houston, Texas in the first place. Still working that to this day. I love it. It keeps me busy, between it and, investing in real estate on the side, it really keeps my time focused towards those two activities. And yeah, there's a lot of challenges with it. And of course, it's also very rewarding. So
that's really cool. That's really cool. So, how do you manage investing and managing your properties and stuff like that with a full-time job?
Well, I think it comes down to, just your reasons why. If you don't really want to invest in real estate, it's pretty difficult. It takes a lot of time. So, for me, it just came down to is really driven, really motivated to do this. And, right. It's kind of what your priorities are. You're going to come home and watch Netflix and make dinner and watch Game of Thrones or whatever it is. You're going to come home, look for properties, shop insurance rates, crunch numbers, just all those things. So, it just kind of came down to me to, what are your priorities? And for a long time, I was coming home and just watching Netflix and going for runs and, hanging out with my buddies and stuff. And then finally I started to get it in gear a little bit, and it's just become a lifestyle now.
Now, do you manage your properties yourself, or do you have a property manager?
So I manage them myself with the help of my dad. He's still locally in Oklahoma, so he's kind of my boots on the ground and my pseudo property manager at this point. So
great.
Yeah. So, I manage my property manager, if you will. And, it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid approach. Starting out, I didn't really want to afford a property manager, or couldn't necessarily afford a property manager on like a portfolio of one rental property. Right.
Right.
So, growing and scaling, the eventual idea is to eventually outsource property management, certainly.
That's good. That's good. So what are your goals? Where are you going from here?
Up.
I love it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the reason I got into this is because I wanted to achieve financial freedom by the age of 30, which is fastly approaching, faster than I wanted to. And, I wasn't going to be able to do that with, a few single family homes, maybe not even a few duplexes, triplexes, et cetera. So I knew I really wanted to scale this thing big from the get-go. And so, I've built my kind of investing philosophy and mantra around growing large. And, I've got a small business now, and acting like a big business is essentially what it boils down to.
That's awesome. That's really, really good. So tell us a little bit about, as an investor that's got a full-time job, what do you look for in a rental property? How do you run the numbers? How do you analyze a deal and say, this is a deal, or this is how much I can pay for this property?
Yeah, great question. And a lot of people out there get tripped up on this stuff because there's so many different facets you could invest for. Do you invest for appreciation? Do you invest for cash flow? Do you invest for ease and passivity, if you will?
Right.
So there's lots of things. So what mattered to me at the beginning was cash flow. That was what's going to supplement my earned income and eventually replace it so that I could essentially retire by
Right.
the age of 30, right? Not that I plan on, kicking my feet up and drinking mojitos on the beach at age 30 and doing that the rest of my life, because
Right.
just not fulfilling. But, I want to be able to do that if I'd like, right? For a weekend or a week or a month. So, cash flow, going back to answer your question, it was all about cash flow for me. So when I analyze a property, I'm really ultimately looking at what's the cash flow it's going to produce.
Right.
And so there's some different ways, there's some different rules of thumbs. Lots of people know the 1% rent to value ratio. In some markets that works, in some it doesn't. In some it's great, in others it's not even achievable. So, that was one of the rules of thumb I first learned. And then there's all kinds of...
Explain that real quick to the viewers.
Sure. So that 1% rent to value ratio is just a kind of rule of thumb to gauge whether a property is going to be worth my financial investment or not. And what that 1% rent to value is the rent to the purchase price of the property. So let's say you have a $100,000 house. I'm going to need rents at least $1,000 a month, or 1% rent to value ratio. So if I'm looking at a property and I see that it's $100,000 and it rents for $500, I'm not going to take my time to look at it any further. I'm not going to further analyze it and crunch the numbers. If it's on the cusp, I'll maybe take a look at it. And if it's above it, I'm definitely going to look at it and wonder why it's so high. So, those are just like a real rough number starting out, real easy to gauge properties. And from there, you're going to, analyze all your expenses and assess the rents and see, is it currently rented? Is it under market? What are the market rents? So it's not hard math. And that's the brilliant part about it. I think anybody can do it. So it's just kind of understanding what you're looking at.
That's simple. And is that the formula you use, or do you go even deeper?
Well, that's the initial kind of lens I look at most things with. But then, once it passes that, I'll go much deeper than that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good, man. That's good. I love it. So what's a typical deal that you do look like?
Yeah, so I've kind of got my bread and butter is duplexes, triplexes right now, primarily in Oklahoma and Texas markets. And usually I'm averaging about $30,000 a door, $30,000 to $50,000 a door for acquisition. So maybe a duplex might be anywhere from $55,000 to $80,000. And and then typical rents for those are exceeding 1%. In some markets, I'm getting 2%, which is crazy. But some people out there are probably cussing me right now, or But so a typical deal. Well, let's just look at something really specific. For example, so I bought that very first property, which we talked about. My second property, it was a duplex. I purchased it for $55,000. And I put 25% down, which was $11,000 and some change. And I actually found this property in a unique way. So my grandpa, who doesn't have a cell phone, doesn't get online, has no access to technology, somehow managed to find this deal for me. And I don't think I've ever actually told this story, so it'll be fun to share it here. So he's out metal detecting with his metal detecting buddy one day. He says, yeah, my grandson's buying properties and, yada, yada. And he says, well, hey, I know of a property over here in the neighboring town. And it's, I know the lady's going to be selling it. She just inherited it. So my grandpa tells me, call up the lady. And yeah, her and her sisters are going to be selling this property. They inherited it. They don't want to fix it up. It's rent ready almost. And they just want out from under it. They just want to, split it their separate ways and go about their way. So
right.
Go over, make an offer on the spot, write up the contract, buy it. So I bought that property for $55,000 with the referral of my grandpa, who has no access to technology at all. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, it just goes to prove, there's all kinds of ways to market and look for deals, anywhere from, finding deals on the market that are listed on the market to finding off market deals. So yeah, but getting back to the numbers on that deal. So, bought it for $55,000, put $11,000 down, a few $1,000s in closing costs. And that was a big chunk of money at the time for me. I just bought that house maybe 6 or 8 months before. So it really depleted my cash reserves, built them back up a little bit, deplete them again. And luckily, it didn't take too much renovation, just cosmetic stuff, paint, interior hardware, that kind of thing. And when I bought it, it was completely vacant, but it was in pretty good shape. So that was kind of a nervous thing, right? I wasn't really sure, what the rents were going to sustain in this market for this exact property. So I got it rented, and moral of the story, it rents for $600 per side. So that's $1,200. And I bought it for $55,000. Doing the math, that exceeds 2% rent to value ratio. So it was a real home run for me. And obviously still got that one in my portfolio, and it's performing well to this day.
That's sweet, man. You know, the best thing about buying an inherited house is the seller has zero in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to get it at a discount, right?
That's definitely true, and a good point. So what you're saying is, there's no note on the property, there's no debt on the property, and they've really got no skin in it. So
they have nothing invested. Anything they get is profit.
Exactly.
Anything. Now, I got to ask you this question. I hope you paid your grandfather a bird dog fee for finding that deal for you.
Oh, yeah, of course. I got him some tickets to his local theater that he loves to go to, and thank him every time I see him. All the Thanksgivings and Christmases I'm over there. So yeah, absolutely. He's probably not going to be listening to this podcast, or I'd give him a shout out. But yeah, it's kind of funny how those things work.
Well, next time you see him, you can take your laptop with you and play it sitting beside him.
Yeah, sure. I certainly will.
That's awesome, man. He'd get a kick out of that.
He definitely will.
That is great. That is great. Good. So I know you have a podcast yourself. What's it called? It's called The Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom.
Yeah, that's right. Long name, big mouthful, but it's called The Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom, where I interview real estate investors and professionals just like you do, Larry. And it started out as a passion project. At the time I was investing in real estate at 25 years old, and a lot of my friends and even family members are saying, hey, what are you doing here? What about this? Are you afraid of this? And just asking me all kinds of questions. And it seemed to intrigue a lot of people. So I decided to answer all these questions at once by starting a real estate investing podcast. And there's been a lot of intangible value. I've got to meet a lot of really cool folks like yourself, Larry. You were on the podcast about a month ago. So get to talk to real estate investors and professionals just like yourself and learn right along with the audience members and connect with a lot of people out there who are doing what I'm doing or doing what I want to do. So yeah, it's really cool and just a great way to immerse yourself in the world of real estate investing.
That's great, man. I love it. I love it. So I know on your podcast you talk about helping people get started in real estate. So what is the biggest piece of advice you could give someone to take that plunge and get started?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I would just say take that plunge and get started. Just take that first step, whatever that may look like to you. It might be picking up your very first book since you've had to read in middle school, or it might be going to a real estate meetup or downloading a real estate podcast like yours, Larry, or whatever it is. Just take that very first step and know that, the ultimate goal is achievable. You can easily invest in real estate. It seems big and it seems scary and it seems hard and lots of unknowns, but really just, educate yourself, get acquainted with, the world of real estate investing, and really just take that first step, big or small, no matter what. And after you take that first step, take that second one and that third, and, it just turns into a lifelong journey.
That's great, man. That's so true. Now, what about somebody that's afraid? They're scared, or maybe they have limited funds to get started. What do you suggest there?
Yeah, sure. Well, fear is a very real thing, and I don't think it goes away. I still get nervous every closing I go to, and when I'm really, serious about buying a deal, I really think of all the things that could go wrong. But over time, I've gotten a little more used to it every time. I think education is a good hedge against risk, and risk is what creates fear. How about yourself, Larry? I mean, I'm sure you still have some trepidations from time to time about deals.
You know what I've found, Jacob, is the more money you have, the less careful you tend to be. In other words, I used to tell people you make your best deals when you have no money, right? Because you got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Right? And then once you start getting a little bit of money, you get a little bit confident, right?
Okay, yeah.
So you have to be more careful. You have to be more careful because now you have money that you can lose, right? And I've lost as much as $75,000 on a deal before. Now that may not sound like a lot to some people, but I don't care who you are. 75 grand is a lot of money.
Certainly is. Yeah. So, I think fear is what holds a lot of people up and prevents people from ever getting started. But, I really think that hedging against risk with education is really the best path you can take. And that's what I did. I spent more than 6 months just, consuming podcasts and reading books and delving into online resources and forums and all kinds of things before I ever bought my very first property, which was, as you can tell, a very small risk of $25,000 property, right? I was only risking $5,000 worth of my own money. So, it was a fairly small risk at the time. I mean, it seemed big at the time, but yeah. So, I say just, if you're worried about doing something, start learning about it and taking those little steps. And next thing you'll be to a point where you get that very first property or that very first apartment complex or whatever it is you want to do.
Right. That's awesome, man. That's really, really good stuff. That's good stuff. So you're going to start doing more small multifamily and move into the larger multifamily, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Good. What's your favorite book?
Oh, that's tough because I'm an avid reader. So I think a lot of people point to Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which is a great mindset book about, just kind of personal finances. So I want to plug something else other than that, though, because I think that's a little over recommended. Maybe a really good mindset book that I really liked was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And such a great book.
Old book.
Yeah, a really old one. I think it was published in maybe the 1930s or 40s, if I'm not mistaken. And the principles ring true to this day. I mean, it's just, it talks about how to win friends and influence people and, how to be a good person and how to think about other people and where they're coming from. And I think a lot of those skills translate very directly to the world of real estate investing and negotiations and dealing with tenants and sellers and buyers and the whole gamut. I think, it's just a great book that teaches a lot of lessons that are very relatable to almost any aspect of life, but definitely real estate investing. So How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
That's good. What about what's the last book you read?
Well, let's see here. I've got Best Ever Apartment Syndication book by Joe Fairless.
Yeah, Joe Fairless,
that's what I'm
interviews. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this guy is really out there killing it. Joe hosts the world's longest running real estate investing podcast.
The world's longest daily.
Daily. Podcast. Yes, that's right. Yes. Yeah. Asterisk daily.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So Joe controls over $400 million of apartments throughout Texas and Ohio, I believe. So, he's a guy that's out there doing what it is I want to do. So I'm going to pick up his book and learn from him. And
he's a pretty young guy too.
He is relatively young. Yes. So yeah, that's the book I'm working on my second pass on it now. So
that's awesome. That's really good. I use Audible. I've downloaded both of his books on Audible.
Yes, yeah. I am an Audible fan for sure. I always have one audio book, one regular book, and then one bedside book going. So my bedside book right now is, what is it? Oh, Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, of course. For my second time. Yes.
Napoleon Hill, right?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I'm definitely an avid reader and audiobook listener, of course, with podcasts. So anytime I'm exercising or running or commuting or doing household chores or whatever, anytime most people are listening to Pandora or whatever music source they listen to, I'm listening to audiobooks or podcasts.
That's sweet, man. I love that. I love it. So I just finished listening to a book called Faster Than Normal.
Okay.
And it's a book about people who have ADD or ADHD, right?
Huh. Okay.
And it's about how the ADHD brain thinks, right? So whether you have ADHD, as most entrepreneurs do, right? Or whether you are living with somebody with it, it's a really, really good book and kind of delves into the mind of how an ADHD brain thinks. And that was the one before last. The one I just finished listening to is called The Miracle Morning.
Oh, really such good. A great book.
Yeah, isn't it though?
Yeah, it certainly is. That's a book that'll make you wake up before your alarm clock and be happy about it. So
it's a great book. It really is. It really is. And then the last book I just finished was called The Circle Maker. It's a good spiritual book. and it's all about prayer. And it's somebody recommended it to us, so we got it on Audible and downloaded it, and I just finished listening to it. So it's a really good book.
Awesome. Sounds like you're an avid Audible guy for sure. So,
oh, there's no question about it. Yeah, I love Audible. I listen to them at 1.5 and 2 times speed.
yes, I do the same. 1.5 is what I can manage.
Yeah, some of them, if they're a little slow, you could get up to 2, but for the most part, it's 1.5.
Yeah.
That's good. So, so Jacob, what about if somebody wanted to reach out to you? How would they connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me at www.jacobayers.com. And from there, you can fill out the contact form. It'll email me. Or you can look me up on social media through the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom. And of course, finding the podcast through iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, all those podcast channels. Anywhere you can find a podcast, it's out there. So yeah, I love talking with people. If you've got any questions or want to talk about real estate investing or mindset or new books or whatever it is, I love, emailing back and forth with folks. So yeah, shoot me an email. Also, you can email me at info@jacobayers.com directly. So yeah, love talking with people.
That's great, man. I appreciate that. I have one last question. You've mentioned twice that you run. Tell me about that.
It's a love-hate relationship. Well, I'm not, a super great runner. I tried to run, a little, probably I try to average maybe 4 runs a week, probably just average about a 5K every run. I like to use the Nike Run Club Plus app, I think it's called. And I've got a few friends on there I like to challenge and just make sure, I'm at least beating them or staying pat with them, some avid runners. So
really?
Yeah, it's good. So, you can, invite your friends on there and there it is. Exactly. Yeah. So, and it's a good way for me to just get out, clear my mind, and, put in some headphones and listen to my favorite podcast or audiobook or whatever it is. And, yeah, it's just, it's a good way for me to stay active and, yeah, it's easy to do.
That's awesome, man. I love it. You'll have to hit me up on here. I don't have anybody that I'm connected with on the app, but I use it every time I run.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I'll send you a friend request. Just don't share my poor mileage rates with all the podcast listeners.
I hear you, man. Listen, I'm the same way. I usually do, since I've been using the app, I've run 339 miles.
Holy smokes. Yeah, I've been using the app for quite a while, and I'm probably barely cracked that. So
I've done 119 total runs.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, well, that's good.
3 miles a run, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's just about a 5K.
Yeah, awesome. We'll have to look you up on there, and anybody else that wants to get a little run challenge going, look us up, and we'll get a little run real estate and club going.
There you go. That sounds good, man. That sounds good. Yeah, I love to do that, but it's like you said, it is love-hate. It's hard some mornings to get up and do that. That's the reason I wanted to read the book, The Miracle Morning.
Yes, that'll change your mindset for sure. Maybe we should talk just a second about that. So, it's a book by Hal Elrod, and he just kind of talks about how you should develop a miracle morning and get the day started on your own terms, right? Because so many people get up, brush their teeth, put on their work clothes, and rush to work. And they'll set their alarm for like the very last minute, like 7:42 a.m. If I just sleep until 7:42, I've got it down to a science. I can be at work in 27 minutes.
Right.
Exactly. Hal kind of preaches, wake up and start the day on your own terms. And he's got some prescribed, I guess, what would you call it? Procedures?
Yeah, he does.
Actions through this SAVERS acronym, right? And yeah, it's really inspired me to just get up, journal, exercise, read. Yeah, it's great. I don't always get around to doing it. Probably average like 5 days a week doing it. But yeah, it's certainly great and gives you a little bit of time to, invest in real estate and get your mind right and do the things that matter to you. So I like it.
That's so true. He calls it his life savers, and SAVERS is an acronym for silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, which is journaling, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I've been on his website since I got the book, and he even has like bedtime affirmations, morning affirmations, and success affirmations, and he gives you his recommended reading list. as well as many other things. So it's really a good book, and he's got a lot of resources.
Definitely so. And he's got a really interesting story. So if you haven't checked out Hal, highly recommend, looking him up. He's got a very inspiring story and lots of great advice out there. So yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
Yeah, he shouldn't even be here, right?
No, that's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. He's had a lot of challenges he's overcome and still faces challenges to this day. So yeah, really inspirational guy.
And we'll just leave it at that to entice you to go read the book yourself.
Go
Right?
pick it up.
Hey man, I really appreciate you being on. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've had a good time talking with you and your audience members. Hope everybody's gotten plenty of value from this. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
That sounds good, man. Thanks a lot for being here. I appreciate it, guys. If you want to reach Jacob, go out and reach him at jacobayers.com or info@jacobayers.com and look up the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast. Check it out. He's a good guy. He's a mover and a shaker, and only 28 years old. So if he can do it, you can do it. And be sure and like this and share this and give us a feedback on the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. If you want to get your investor's kit, just give us a call, a free investor's kit, 877-LARRY-GO. That's 877-LARRY-GO. Just call, and Zenobia will answer the phone. She'll send you out a free investor's kit, which is a couple of my books and some audio and video trainings, as well as things on self-directed retirement accounts. So with that, thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate it. And Jacob, thanks again. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, Larry. Take care.
All right, you too.